Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, and welcome to the first part in a series I'm going to be doing on Folklore the Affliction. And we're going to be focusing on the Fall of the Spire, the new expansion that just got delivered from Kickstarter. So what this is going to be, this is not going to be a Let's Play series. I'm not going to play through the game on camera. The main reason why is because there are so many rules, so many tiny little details to remember about this game that it would just be one series of mistakes after another, and I just don't want to deal with rules lawyers in the comments. It would just make it not fun for me and really not be useful for anybody to watch. So what this is going to be is I'm going to play through this game. So I'm on vacation from work this week, and I'm going to be playing through as much of this story journal as I can off camera. And then I'm going to be doing video updates about the adventure, kind of like battle reports or session reports or adventure recaps, and talk a little bit about the game and do kind of a long form review as we go. Because while I like Folklore the Affliction, I think this game has a ton of cool ideas and so many neat components and just a great feel of adventure, of almost role-playing. It's a pretty neat game. I also have quite a few issues with some of the core mechanisms and that kind of thing. So in this first episode, what we're going to do is we are going to pick the two characters that I'm going to play with. Additionally, I'm going to go over some house rules that I use when playing with two characters, because the game really is not balanced very well for two characters, especially starting out. So I am going to pick two of the 6 characters from the new expansion. We're going to take a detailed look at them right now. And the 6 that I have to choose from are the Viper Maiden, the Judas, the Gentleman, the Magus, the Huntress, and the Warlord. And we have their standees here. I am going to be playing the standee version. I'm actually trying to sell my minis right now from the first Kickstarter because I greatly prefer the standees. So we have the Gentleman here, the Magus or the Magus, the Judas, the Huntress, the Viper Maiden, and the Warlord. One of the reasons why I prefer the minis is that all the minis for all of the game, all of Folklore, they all fit in this little farmer's bundle box. That is awesome. I could not do that with minis. They would take up multiple boxes and a lot of room. So standees for the win. I thought this was pretty serendipitous. In my recent look at Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, I lamented the fact that we don't have a lot of city adventures in these games. Well, lo and behold, the first major part of the Fall of the Spire story journal and a major part of the entire storybook does revolve around a city adventure. This is really cool. I could not have planned this any better. Normally with Folklore, you're moving across the overworld and you go into these smaller maps, and the overworld is on a nice cardboard fold-out board, and these smaller adventure maps are on these thinner boards. And most of the time, I don't have a problem with those because you're only dealing with one at a time. But this game has you lay out a couple larger maps like this, and it's okay. The boards really scoot around a lot. It's hard to get perfectly lined up. It works, but it's not the best. But that is that. So, all right, let's take a look at the characters here. Now, one thing with only two heroes is you really need a healer. So that's probably going to limit us right away by having to pick whoever the healer is going to be in this set. And I have a feeling it's probably the Judas. One thing you can do, and one thing I've done before when playing with two, is I take a third character who's kind of like off camera. I think that would usually be the Exorcist. I would pick 2 characters and then have the Exorcist be a guy who is, he's with my party, but I'm not controlling him. I'm not using him on the adventures. I'm not using him in the encounters. I only use him in some limited way to help heal. He's like a, he's like a support character that you can call, like if you would in like some kind of JRPG or something. I'm not going to do that in this game. I'm just going to use 2 with some house rules, but that is an option if you want to just kind of, house rule it yourself. So let's take a look at these. The Viper Maiden. So we have the character sheet, which has all of your stats, and then also has your ghost stats for when you die. If you can't get resurrected right away, you can become a ghost. And then you also have the character booklets, which contain a little bit of a story. They have 2 classes, subclasses that you can pick. They come with the starting abilities and gear. They tell you the different things you can do in town when you visit the different settlement places. And then they have your lore tree, and this is how you upgrade your character. So right away, this is one of the things that I really love about Folklore the Affliction, and that is the characters themselves are all super cool. They're unique, they have different abilities, they come with interesting starting gear. They really feel different, especially when you get to choose their subclass and when you start leveling them up with their lore. So, the Viper Maiden, a warrior operative from the land of Persia. That's really interesting that this, I can't remember if they've ever mentioned real places like Persia before, but this, cements this game in something close to our reality. A warrior operative from the land of Persia, sent on a quest by the wise men of the East to gather lore and information about the growing threat of darkness in the West. She must investigate and prepare her nation for what evils lie in wait. She is trained in the Order of the Asp, a sect of spy-like assassins whose accuracy with the bow and poisons are deadly. Due to her secretive methods, she may only have one militia companion at a time. Okay, so she's limited to one companion. And then her 2 focuses, her subclasses, are a spy or an assassin. As a spy, she can raise her awareness. So awareness is one of your skills. She's better at trickery, and after combat, she can make an awareness check to learn details about a creature, which gives her a advantage to fighting certain creatures. Okay, so next up is the assassin, and let's see, each round or counter, so she can discard consumables to gain extra attacks, which is pretty cool, and she can poison. She starts with 2 abilities, Viper Maiden and Eastern Stealth and Zoroaster's Emissary. So as an Eastern Stealth, if you are not adjacent to a foe, you become untargetable until your next turn. You may not move or make melee attacks. Spend 1 additional power point to remain invisible. Okay, so she's better at stealth, so that's kind of cool. That might be helpful with only having 2. And also her Zoroaster's Emissary. Your will to survive is strong. When you are reduced to 0 vita, that's hit points, you may pass 8 nerve 7 to recover. Okay, so she has a self-heal, which is pretty cool. I like that. And then she comes armed with a bow and a small, dagger-like melee weapon. Pretty cool. Bow, only 3 shots per combat. So, she has 3 arrows she can use in each encounter, and then she'll have to switch to a dagger weapon there. Those are the things, you guys, if you want to pause that, these are the things that she can buy that only she has available in town. Now, we used to not have cards for this, but they have recently released cards for all of the bespoke items that are unique to each character. And these new characters in the expansion come with cards for all of her special items. And then the lore tree here, this is how she can level up. I'm not really going to be looking ahead at this. I'm pretty much going to be picking my party based on how cool I think they look, and I do need some healing. So that was the Viper Maiden. Next up is the Judas. Born in the Feylands, a dimension similar to our own, belonging to a colony of humans that immigrated there generations ago. She crossed a temporary dimensional rift, leaving the land of her birth to enter the home of her ancestors in order to protect the balance of our world and thereby protect the Phalanx. Unlike our dimension, where matter is concrete, mastery of magic in the Phalanx comes from the fairy mists, pliable matter that make up all things. Bringing with her object of power, she must find her way in a land where the only magic comes from dark places and bring the light of the fairy to bear down on evil forces threatening nature in its balance. Real quick, I want to go back to the Viper real quick, the Viper Maiden. The different stats are we have life, defense, which is what the enemies need to hit you. Might is what you add to an attack. Damage is what you add to damage. These are power points. Those allow you to use and purchase abilities. And then stride is her movement. And then each of the characters has a number of skills that you get to add to a D10 roll. She has awareness, ecology, occult, and trickery. And then her keywords, which the keywords allow her to learn certain abilities and might trigger certain things at certain points in the game. She has the keywords desert, marksman, and martial. She can learn rituals. All right, so now let's take a look at the Judas. Her backstory reminds me, I don't know if you guys have been watching that Netflix series, Cursed. Really cool, based on a comic book, a retelling of the Arthurian legend from different perspectives. My wife and I are really into it. We cannot wait for season 2. It's kind of goofy. It's definitely like a YA take on things, but man, some of the gore is absolutely gruesome in the show, and there's some great characters, and her little backstory here reminds me a lot of that. So the Judas, you can see her main attributes here. Her skills are archaeology, ecology, and faith. So she only has 3, whereas the Viper Maiden had 4. Her keywords are nature, explorer, and druidic. And she can learn rituals and prayers. Her subclasses are Summoner of the Green Word, Animal Magnetism. You may only possess animal companions at the beginning of an encounter with a nature foe. So the foes are divided into certain categories, and nature being one of them. She gains 1 power point for each nature foe in battle. At the beginning of a skirmish with a nature foe, you gain. So when she's going up against nature enemies, she is more powerful. That's pretty cool. Hopefully they've tailored these adventures to make that useful. I always hate it when a character has certain keywords or certain abilities against only certain other things. And then you go on adventures and none of those things are present, which really hinders using that character. So hopefully that's not the case here. Fairy Influence. She can summon a creature for combat by spending cost plus X power points. See the lore tree. Their Vita becomes the minimum value of the creature card. So she can summon extra enemies to help fight, which could come in handy playing only 2 heroes. She's also an Earthbinder, or she can be an Earthbinder, having Runecraft once per chapter. A chapter is an entire story, I believe. Let's see, how are the stories? I always forget how the stories are. So we have a story into the city, which is story 1, and then the stories are divided into chapters. So it's not a full story, it's every chapter. So that can happen multiple times in a story. Once per chapter, you may inscribe a single rune onto one item the group owns at any time. The rune's power fades at the end of the chapter. Runes are learned and detailed in the lore tree. Oh, that's cool. That's pretty neat. She can learn these different runes by leveling up. That is really cool. And then Earth Spark. You gather the electric potential stored within the earth and unleash it upon the foes using the cone template. Once per round, all foes within the area of effect lose 1d4 Vita and are at the cost of 2 power points. Every additional power point adds a damage. This character seems really cool. And let's see, her starting abilities are Call Lightning and Fleshbind Vortex. Call Lightning is an electrical attack, and Fleshbind Vortex is her healing power. She starts with 1 prayer. which the prayers I don't think I have out right now. I have a lot of stuff kept away to try to keep the amount of components on my table down to a minimum because there are so many components in this game. She starts with a weapon, a melee weapon, silver sickle. Here are the things that she can buy in town, and then her lore tree. Already I know I'm going to be picking the Judas. She sounds really cool, so she is number 1 there. Next up we have the gentleman who looks like a pugilist. He's got quite a bit of Vita. His defense is high 40. That's pretty cool. 5 power points. He knows archaeology, nerve, and speech. His keywords are explorer, gambler, and martial. He can learn prayers. He only starts with bandages, which is really interesting. No gear. So, the gentleman, an investigator and pugilist from future Europe, circa 1900. He is a collector of antiquities and unintentionally traveled back in time through an ancient floor-length mirror he acquired from an antique dealer. He found himself staring at his reflection after a devastating fight in the ring. Battered, he lost consciousness, and falling forward, he passed through the mirror to another time and place. He awoke to find himself on the other side of the mirror in Krimmel. This is the land that we are in now. Somewhere in the bowels of Belvar Estate. He has no idea what bizarre twist of fate led him to this dark place of arcane happenings and foul creatures. Fleeing the estate, he finds himself in a strange land filled with monsters to pit his fighting skills against while he searches for a way to return home. Really cool stories, really cool background stories. Again, one of the best things about Folklore are the characters and how interesting they are. So he can be an investigator or a pugilist. As an investigator, he can make free attacks. He has a keen sense of investigation, which leads him to search better. And he can spend a power point to draw a second card on searches, so he's better at finding useful things. As a pugilist, he can also have another free attack. And he has traveled the known world and have become the master of the martial arts of Bartitsu. Bartitsu? I have not heard of that martial art. I'm not sure if it's real or not. Bartitsu. During an encounter, if you do not move, you can make an extra free hand attack at no cost. That's cool. So you can punch somebody else for free. He knows fisticuffs and gentleman's bravado. With fisticuffs, move before and after your attack up to your stride. Oh, that's cool. So he can move around the battlefield pretty quickly. As a gentleman, the gentleman's bravado, demoralize your foe and force them to roll damage twice on their attack and take the lower result. That's cool. So he can force you to have disadvantage on a damage roll. Here are the things that he can buy when he's in town, and then his lore, his upgrade. I'm not sure I'm going to pick him. I think he would probably be better as a third party member if you were playing 3. All right, next up we have the Magus, a remnant of the ancient Zoroastrian who watched the sky and read the signs for portents. Like those before him, he studies the secrets of the universe. The Magus comes from the east in search of the source of upheaval and terror he has seen in the stars and their alignments. Believing in the divine inspiration behind all things, he brings a knowledge of the supernatural and mastery of the metaphysical in his fight to take down forces that do not belong in our world. There are his stats. 6 power points, that's good. His skills, faith, archaeology, and the occult. His keywords, forbidden, magi, and mythos. He can learn rituals and prayers. His 2 subclasses that he can pick from: Order of the Alchemist, gather celestial energy as you fight. You gain a charge token for each successful. Charge tokens are a new thing to this expansion. At any time, you may spend 1 power point to activate your stored charges, like so. Or he can be a stargazer. Once per chapter, you may spend 1 power point to create a world event. If a world event is in play, this replaces it for the chapter. So world events, I don't have those out either. It's a deck of about 40 cards that change the overall, kind of an environmental rule that impacts everything in the game. He can change that by spending power points and causing one of these to override any else in play. Well, that's pretty cool because some of the rule events can be really bad. He starts with the Corrosionist and Touch of the Magi. So add a corrosion token to your attack. So corrosion, I can't remember what corrosion does, but it's a status that you can impose on your foe. And he may tap an adjacent ally on the shoulder, whispering, "Do better." That ally may re-roll a failed die or attack roll. Yeah, that's kind of cool. He starts with a falcata, a curved sword, and either a prayer or a ritual, and holy water and bandages. And there are the things that he can buy. And here is his lore tree. I'm going to put him in the maybe pile. Next up, we have the Huntress, a warband huntress and daughter of a great tribal shaman. During a spirit walk, her father was assaulted by a terrifying being from beyond the veil. As his heart failed, he passed his knowledge and power to his daughter, and she inherited the spiritual strength of the tribe's ancestors. She now takes her father's place as a tribal leader, shaman, and huntress. She has begun to see disturbing visions of evil in the land to the north and knows that her people will not be safe unless she travels to that land to find the source of the evil that murdered her father. Okay, she can be a hunter-gatherer. She can hunt for food. She's a master at handling beasts. She can have more animal companions. You have a light chain attached to your spear, so she can use her spear as a ranged weapon. She's also can be a shaman. Her attacks gain sacred, a keyword that can trigger things. She's better at against ethereal foes, and she may spirit walk and assume your ghost form during combat. So ghost form, of course, is a special form that gives the characters different powers. So she can like go into the spirit world. That's really cool. Here's her character. She has 4 skills: archaeology, awareness, nerve, and trickery. Her keywords are fierce, martial, and psychic. And here's her ghost form, since that's a little more important to this character here. All right, and she starts with 2 abilities. She can heal herself for 1d6 plus 1. Spend an additional 2 power points to also cure possession, lycanthropic, or bloodlust. Okay, that's cool. Self-heal is always nice. And she's a savannah hunter. Choose 1 foe as your prey and receive +5 might against it. You may target a foe in sight with a spear type weapon as a free attack. Okay, and then there's her spear there. All right, I'm leaning towards her because I like her backstory. I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to put her up there with the Judas. And finally, we have the Warlord, a wandering war master from the sands of the Sahara. He has traveled far and wide in his conquests and has learned the mysticism of the dervish. In his devotion to the mystic dance, he was shown a vision of vile creatures entering our world. He has come to Krimmel in search of foes worthy of his battle prowess and is sworn to defeat invaders from outside our plane of existence. There's his stats there. His skills: ecology, faith, nerve, and trickery. His keywords: desert, martial, and military. Okay, his subclasses, his focuses: dervish and Saracen, not sure how you say that. Dervish: once per encounter, the dervish can perform a whirling dance of blades maneuver, giving him an attack versus all adjacent foes. Or he may pass through foes without penalty. And as a Saracen, he may equip a shield without using a hand slot. That is cool. And you may collect a trophy token for every foe. You may use the trophy token in exchange for bonuses listed in the lore tree. So he can, he's like, he's a treasure hunter, a trophy hunter, and he can trade those in for certain things. He starts with 2 abilities: Ancient Art of War and Insane Courage. Ancient Art of War gives him a +2 initiative, and he may attack before creatures during the first round. So the initiative track is something we're going to be discussing after the first adventure recap, which is a new element to the combat in this game that I think is going to add a lot. And he has insane courage. At the start of combat, before making your first attack, gain 2 Vita. Spend 2 power points to gain 5 Vita, or 4 power points to gain... So another self-heal. I think they have addressed some of the issues with healing in this game. All right, and he starts with another curved blade. Lots of curved blades in this expansion. A Copish. And he has bandages and a shield. And here are the things that he can buy. All right. Well, I think I made up my mind. I'm going to have a femme fatale party here, going with the Judas and the Huntress. And let's see how those two fare against the dangers of this city adventure. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the house rules that I'm going to be playing with off and on the fly. I'm going to be thinking about these. These are house rules that I have used in this game before, and in my opinion, they make playing with 2 heroes more fun. It does make the game easier, but as far as I'm concerned, that's okay, because I'm just playing solo and I'm just kind of playing this as a fun, like, little RPG board game. So with 2 players, what I do is I double all coin rewards when you fight enemies, because I've found that they just usually don't give you enough money when you only have 2 players. I make separate item decks for weapons, protection, enhancement, and consumable items. Instead of mixing all 4 of those together, I make separate decks for each. And when told to draw a random item, I can draw from the deck that I choose. It just makes getting more useful items easier. When bartering in town, I can draw 3 items, 1 from each of the 4 decks above. Target tokens. Combat in this game is super swingy because it uses a D100 system, and at the beginning of the game you're missing a lot, and it just kind of makes combat take forever. And so I added this system called target tokens. So when you miss an attack, you get a target token. That token can be spent on a subsequent attack to add 5 to your roll. You can use multiple target tokens in a single roll, but they have to be used before rolling. And target tokens do not carry over between maps after skirmishes or after combat. This is what I play with 2 players only. After a skirmish in combat, the whole party gains 1d6 Vita and 1d3 power points, dispersed amongst the heroes as you choose. This is the big one, and I really don't understand why they did this, and I'm going to pick an example here. So let's take a look at the crocodile. So enemy health, I always base it on the max player count and then divide it by 2, because they have it all skewed, all weird. So at 5 players here, you have a health of 41. Okay, so 41 divided by 5, it's about 8. 8 health per crocodile. But at 2, each crocodile has 25 health. That's crazy, because if you were to take the 8 that each gets here and divide that by 2, that would only be 16. And so for some reason, the game makes the enemies stronger when you have fewer heroes, and I'm not sure why that is. So I always just base the enemies on the maximum number of health that they would have with a full complement of 5 heroes, and then divide that and then multiply that by 2, which gives you a very different total. I'm not quite sure. For the life of me, I can't figure out why they decided to give the enemies more health when there are fewer heroes. That does not make sense to me, and again, it's something that makes the combat just take a long time. And the combat is not the best thing about this game. The best thing about Folklore, in my opinion, is developing your character, experiencing the story, and looking at the different maps and exploring new areas and that kind of thing. Another thing with 2 heroes is after the combat is over, you have 1 extra round to do any searching or investigating on the map, because it is really hard with only 2 to have enough time on the maps to be able to search for things that need to be found. And then finally, there are road events and travel events. And usually those, you're going on the overland, they happen at the end of every turn. And they end up just happening too often, and you burn through your decks really quickly, and you see everything too quickly. And so I just make it a little bit of a chance. So road events, which are a little safer, those happen on a D10, those happen on a 1 to a 3. Off-road events happen when you roll a 1 to a 4. So those are the house rules that I play with. Those are the house rules I'm going to be playing this with. So, wow, this was a long video. So, all right, guys, well, I'm super excited to get playing Folklore. I'm going to have a really fun time this week on my days off playing this game, and then talking about it, doing review as I go, doing adventure recaps as we delve into this city adventure with our party of the Judas and the Huntress. So, all right, everybody, well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.